I chopped up the vegetables. The main reason to chop up the vegetables is to create surface area. Remember, if you just leave a vegetable, it's going to become covered with molds. If you can get it submerged under liquid, that protects it from oxygen and enables the lactic acid bacteria to proliferate instead. You could just add water, and if you work with whole vegetables or big chunks of vegetables, that's what you need to do, but you actually get much stronger flavor if you create surface area, and that enables you to extract the water from the vegetables so you can get them submerged under their own juices. Then I sprinkle on salt. The quantity of salt is not really so essential. I mean, in the traditional context where this is a survival food, this might be the only vegetables you're going to see for the next 6 or 8 months, you have an incentive to use a lot of salt. If you're making it in our contemporary context where this really is not the only fresh vegetables you're going to see for 6 or 8 months, and you want to make something that's going to taste delicious and that's going to be healthy to eat, there's no reason to use a huge amount of salt. The important thing is to salt it in a way that tastes good to you. My main message to you is you don't need any special products to do this. You have a cutting board and a knife at home. I like to use a grater, but if you don't have a grater, you can do it without a grater. What the salt does is it pulls water out of the vegetables by osmosis, so it makes it easier to get the vegetables submerged under their own juices. It creates a selective environment. When I talk about manipulating the environments, fermentation is all about creating selective environments. So the lactic acid bacteria happen to be extremely salt tolerant, whereas many other bacteria that are present are not salt tolerant. So you salt the food, mix it up. Then there's this other step that I think maybe I underemphasized when I wrote Wild Fermentation, and that is bruising the vegetables. So, in traditional context, people doing big barrels for a community, they might have a big, tamping instrument of some sort where they're pounding down on the cabbage that they're shredding with this, sort of blunt, heavy instrument to bruise the vegetables. My friend who was born in the Czech Republic, when I met his grandmother, she told us this hilarious story that when she was a little girl, they would scrub the feet of her and the other children and put them inside the barrel and let the kids jump up and down on the cabbage as they were shredding it to accomplish exactly the same thing, bruising the vegetables, breaking down cell walls. We're trying to get our vegetables submerged under their own juices. So what I do at this kind of a scale, in my kitchen in a little bowl, is I get my hands in it and I go like this. I squeeze the vegetables. I massage them. People who watch the room might have just seen me doing this. I did this for about 5 minutes, and it really wilts the vegetables. And here's my test for when the vegetables are moist enough to sort of stuff into their vessel, is I'll pick up a handful and squeeze. And you want it to be like a sponge. You want to just see water come out when you squeeze it. So I don't know if people can really see that, but there it is. It's juice, kind of carrot colored, coming down out of there. So I'm just going to taste a little piece. I'm going to add a little bit more salt. Meanwhile, let's talk about vessels. We're going to do it in jars. These are wide-mouth canning jars, really, really nice to ferment in. But again, you don't need to go buy anything special. And increasingly, I've been finding beautiful crocks that potters hand make. And if you think about the history of pottery and what gave people the incentive to figure out how to create vessels that hold water, I think it was for fermenting, not fermenting vegetables, but for fermenting alcoholic beverages. That's a very powerful incentive. But really, for a small scale, this is fine. Just doing it in a jar. I'll give you a sense of proportion. A quart jar like this will take about 2 pounds of vegetables to fill. So each pound of vegetables will fill about a pint. You definitely want to stay away from metal. It's fine. We're mixing the vegetables in a metal bowl. But the problem is that salt corrodes metal. and acids corrode metal. And here we have both of those substances. And then if I'm doing it in the jar method, I mean, one thing you don't want to do is fill it to the very, very top, because there's always a little bit of expansion in the earliest stages of fermentation. And so, you know, if you fill it to the very top and the liquid is right at the edge, then it's, you know, it's definitely gonna ooze out, especially in the first 24 hours. There's just expansion. So this is about full enough. I usually just go up to where the threads for the lid appear. Now, you know, I'm pressing down and they're well submerged, but then as soon as I remove my hands, they sort of reabsorb some of the water and some of the pieces float to the top. When I do this on a larger scale, like in a crock, I'll put a lid, usually like just a plate, the biggest plate I can find that fits inside of the crock, rests on the surface of the vegetables. And then I'll take a jug, like a gallon-sized, you know, apple juice jug, fill it with water, and let that serve as a weight, pressing down. So there's a constant weight bearing down, pushing the vegetables down, pushing the water up to keep everything submerged. When I do it that way, what I call the open crock method, it's really important to keep flies off of any food that you're aging. So then I take like a cloth and I just put it over the whole thing, and then I take a string and I just tie it around the whole thing, especially in the summertime when there's lots of flies.